to describe how to seek that ascertainment. It's the ascertainment of the absence of inherent existence. That's what preceded it. The immediate antecedent is that ascertainment. So the ascertainment before that is the antecedent before that one is the ascertainment of inherent existence. In a way easy to understand. He lays out the steps. Cause the object of negation, inherent existence. What you're going to negate with reasoning. But of course, as it's said in so many instructions on the view, you have to watch for how this ordinarily, how the aspect of inherent existence appears to your mind. So you're not in a reasoning mode. You're just watching how it appears. And the advice given is to watch, for instance, how when you get up at night and you're walking in the dark, or when you think about it, why you're walking in the dark at night, you got up to take a leak and you bump into something and something coalesces. And watch that. You're not thinking about reasoning. You're not thinking about object of negation. You're just in your ordinary state of mind and watch what appears. And something appears and watch it. Watch it as if with a corner of your mind. That means you don't want the watchfulness to overpower what you're watching. You're watching with a corner of your mind what appears. So, watching with a corner of your mind. Corner of the mind is, it's the example given is you're walking on a path. I think this example is given, it must be a fairly familiar path. I think it's along a crag, but it can't be quite along the edge of the crag. And you're talking with a friend, and you know, you don't want to fall off the edge of the crag. So a corner of your mind is keeping track of, I don't know whether it's the conversation or the crag. It's one or the other. The same when you're driving, for instance, and you're keeping up a conversation with somebody, and the corner's on the road, or the corner's with the, right? With the conversation. And if too much is with either one, which sometimes happens, right? You lose the road or you lose the conversation. And if too much is with the conversation, you'd have to say, shut the hell up. We're going to have an act, or you say, please, you put your hand up, or, if you don't have the temperament for saying shut the hell up, give me a break, whatever way you've worked out to handle this. But if you're going along, fairly easily. The corner might be with the road, with the superhighway, like in a place out of Massachusetts, those big highways that Eisenhower built. You know what I mean, right? The same with meditating. You've got to keep up occasional introspection as to whether you're keeping with the object or not keeping with the object, the occasional introspection as to whether you're falling into laxity or excitement. But if you do that too much, you can't keep with either of those. You can't keep with the object. You have to be able to do two things at once, which, you know, there are all sorts of debates and that you can't do this, but you can. And I've told the story before, but it's worthwhile saying again. I used to go up the hill in, when I was staying at Kashmir Cottage, I used to go up the hill, way up the hill, to Geshe-Rapden's baked mud floor, one-room place, where he was leading other meditators, and sit on the floor where he was teaching me the wisdom chapter of the fifth Dalai Lama's text. And then at some point, I don't know where I was staying. If I might have been staying at Rishi Bowen, which was just down a bit from where he was, or I was staying at Kashmir Cottage on the level of the library. And he was giving talks at the library. And so he was being treated by Gyatso Tsering, who was the head of the library, and had Gyatso Tsering offered him his house, and was staying in the living room. I don't think Gyatso Tsering was staying there at all. And the room had no screens. And it's on the hill. And so it was one level down. You know, if you looked out the window, there were cows right there. Not Gyatso Tsering's cows, but the Indian neighbor's cows. So the cows were shitting just outside the window. So there were a lot of flies in the room, the living room, where Geshe-Rapden was teaching me. I assumed he was sleeping there. Maybe there was another room where he was sleeping. I doubt it. So the flies were coming in, landing on his face and on my face. And because he was teaching me the wisdom chapter, neither he nor I, he as teacher, myself as student sitting on the floor, neither of us were swatting the flies away. because that would be, taking away our attention. But with a corner of my attention, I was watching the flies on his face while I was intently listening to his teaching about that very topic of watching something going on, right? Your apprehension of I, when you bump against something, or in this case, the example in there is when you hear a loud noise nearby. Something falls down, or you just hear a loud noise, and there's some sort of, right? If something oh, right. and so then after a little while, something fell down just outside our room, on the porch. Something fell down, some, wooden sort of structures type stuff. Some stuff that was leaning against our room, the room where we were. But it turned out that neither of us flinched. So it was sort of like noticeable, the non-flinching. Neither of us. That sort of stayed in my mind. So we didn't get the chance. I didn't get the chance to notice. But there was a subtler non-flincher, which I didn't pay attention to. The non-flincher. But many times, of course, bumping into things at night that you didn't expect to be there. And there are mistakes made that this thing coalesces, and then that, when you pay attention to it with too strong a mind paying attention, that disappears. And some people think, well, that's emptiness because it disappeared. No, you just paid too close attention. So the mind of the attender was too strong, and there was just the absence of the coalescence. That's not emptiness. Right? It's like, taking a shower. If I have too much desire, and to get rid of it, I take a shower, because you pay attention to the shower. That absence of desire is not emptiness. It's just putting your mind somewhere else. Right? But sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you're in a store. I'm in a store. I shouldn't say you. And you feel, oh, I want to sweep that thing up and put it in my grocery bag. I don't want to have to pay for that. Oh, it's so expensive. Oh, there's a nice watch. Oh, there's that. Yeah. I'm trying to think of when that last happened to me. It's usually a car that happens to me. But I can't quite put it in my grocery bag. And I don't, it doesn't last long enough for me to look in and see if the keys are there. So I'm trying to think. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so cause the generality of the object of negation by reasoning to appear well. For instance, and then in another text it says, imagine that somebody's pointing a finger at you and accusing you of something you didn't do. And you think, I didn't do that. What about, it never says, imagine somebody pointing a finger at you and saying, you made this mess, right? and you want to hide thinking I did do that, or you want to pretend I didn't do that. Yeah. Anyway, right? The Tibetan word chaba, hiding from an accusation, covering up. I don't want to admit it. The kind of, I was in Geneva 9 months into my study and practice of Buddhism, and I was leading a group of practitioners and teachers at the Jung Institute, but I wasn't. This was being done outside of the Jung Institute, and we were practicing this of somebody accusing, and we right at the first meeting, I suggested, well, let's not do a lot of talking. Let's sit down and all face the wall and let's do something. Let's practice something. And everybody but one analyst did that. He just faced, he was sort of angry, faced inside the room. And he didn't want to do that. He was going to observe the others. It was kind of nice. He was being honest. I'm not going to do this fake meditation thing. It was his idea. And I sort of enjoyed the fact that he was being honest. I don't remember if he joined in the later sessions. I didn't get upset over effrontery. So, all these techniques. So, with these words, you can get a lot of wrong ideas, as if you immediately have to take this as the object of negation, that reasoning has to get involved. No, it's the opposite of reasoning. You have to let it appear. Imagining scenes. And contemplating well inherent existence. And, you don't want to even be naming it inherent existence. As it is superimposed, while you're not even, right, thinking of it as a superimposition by the ignorance, and you're not even thinking of it as, this is a regular emotional reaction. Of course, in your own continuum, identify it. Wow. So, what this is saying is, imagine somebody's pointing a finger at you and accusing you of something you've done or haven't done. Pretty cool. Then the type of mind that's in the second bullet that's involved is very reasoning, very different type of mind. And so how long would it take to do the first one, right? And it does not pass beyond oneness and difference. You know, it's like, what the hell does that mean? Well, this section, if you've, in this book, this section in this book, is on the selfness of persons. And in this case, it's on one's own self. Self here meaning I. And so it's one's own, it's I, Jeffrey. So that's oneness and difference between this I and the aggregates, mind and body, that are the basis of designation. I just want to, you've all studied this topic a lot, and I want to identify what this one and different is the I and the mind and body that are the basis of designation, one or different. So this inherently, this which is appearing, is at one with the basis of designation or different. So there's that whole study. And if one is using the sevenfold reasoning of Chandrakirti, as laid out by Chandrakirti, those seven are various permutations of oneness and difference. And that's a study and a form of practice in and of itself that we are not going to go into here. You've already gone into it in your own study. And with particular emphasis, contemplate the way damages come to assertions as either one or different. Contemplate, do a whole lot of contemplation, eventually inducing ascertainment, seeing the damage. And that takes a lot. Takes a whole lot. And, you have to feel the damage. There's a book called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. Revolutions are big changes, and I sometimes have at the tip of my tongue the name of the author, which I don't have at the tip of my tongue today and didn't have the time to look it up. we stupidly, he lays out very nicely, we stupidly think of the scientific method as, evidence comes up and the scientific method is such that when the evidence comes up, we scientists react to it and change immediately. No. His point is, when it's a big topic, and I will say almost always, even with little topics, in my own experience, we don't change immediately. The evidence has to accumulate, and accumulate before we're just inundated with the same old frickin' evidence before we change our mind. We're so committed to the old evidence that we just plain won't see that this planet revolves around the sun, and I'm trying to figure out, I learned quite some time ago with that the mint in my antacids could be stimulating more acid in my stomach and might be burning my throat, making my voice hoarse. And for months and months and months and months, I have been seeking antacids with mint in it because I don't want the fake flavors, chemical flavors in the antacids. That's been my view. I don't want that. So I'll take the white ones. It's not because my skin is white and I'm one of those nut bags, I hope. So, and I'm slowly waking up to the evidence that I read about quite some time ago. So, it takes a lot of time for scientists to accumulate the barrel upon barrel upon barrel of evidence. And then Hans Kung, the great the great theologian, Catholic theologian, whom the various popes have hated, who I've been on some panels with, or used to be on. I don't go to any of those anymore. And who wanted me to write a book with him. He has adapted this to Thomas Kuhn, that's his name.
Yeah, Thomas Kuhn.
Yeah, Kuhn. Adapted this to theology, which, sure enough, of course, I think it could be adapted to any field, like my life. And of course, that's why we have to meditate on, contemplate, right? So much, and cultivate, contemplate the sevenfold, the 7 plus, the introductory step of even-mindedness, with respect to the types of sentient beings, why we have to meditate so much And we just can't get convinced like that by some reasoning, as much as we might like it, because we're so thick with predispositions. So Thomas Kuhn and Hans Kuhn have much to say to us. I got into these by being on Buddhist Christian, in Buddhist Christian dialogues for, I guess, a number of years. Shocked at how interested Christians were in emptiness. Shocked. Just bowled me over. Anyway. And also shocked that, like myself, the misconceptions I had about emptiness, their misconceptions about emptiness, no matter how much I would talk about in one meeting, a year later, they wouldn't have remembered anything. Their misconceptions would have washed out almost anything, maybe everything that I had said, and any of the other Buddhists would have said. But that's like my own mind. It's not any different. I didn't say, as I said last year, as if I was any different from them. It was really wonderful people. They would say, when it comes down to it, my Christianity is just that I think there's something there. They felt so comfortable meeting in this group. It was a private group. Anyway, yes. It does not pass beyond, okay. Wow, finally, you see how much has to be brought to these steps. Finally, make firm the ascertainment thinking. A person does not in the least have inherent establishment. Now it's from this statement, this kind of statement that Tsong-kha-pa and His Holiness make, that persons in other sects of Tibetan Buddhism come to the conclusion that all Tsong-kha-pa wants people to do is to conceptualize this kind of statement, that there's no direct perception in his teaching. And of course, that's because he's saying, make firm the ascertainment thinking, this kind of conceptual conclusion. But this sort of conceptual conclusion itself is very deep. But of course, one has to pass through the various levels of deeper conceptual understanding that is eventually without words, but is still conceptual, and then direct perception on the path of seeing, direct perception, and the path of meditation, and of course the path of no more learning. Frequently trained this way in the class of emptiness. And then I understood after I sent this to you that in the next session, in the second bullet, take to mind, it should be the class of dependent arising. I understood the plural marker as referring to class of emptiness and class of dependent arisings. That the plural comes from class of emptiness and class of dependent arisings. That class appears twice, and that's where the plural marker in Tibetan comes. So please eliminate the classes. You see, in my dedication to the literality, I tried to figure out why it's in the third line of my word version, in Tibetan Chok Nam, why Tsong-kha-pa had this unusual reading of Chok Nam. And as I was just walking around my apartment, I came to the conclusion, let us say, perhaps temporary, that the Tibetan Denjalki Choknam is I think it's harking back to empty class and dependent arising class. But that's my temporary reading on that plural marker. So then, let the undeniable appearances, and this very provocative, or as we used to say in the 50s, pregnant word, undeniable, meaning having a lot of meaning. You can't deny these appearances. Appearances of the conventions of persons dawn as objects. Let them dawn. So that means you are in a state of a mere voidness dawning, and with the empty class. And that empty class, is the mere absence. And one has to, it's as if visually. There's a mere absence. That mere absence is the mere absence of inherent existence. And some people want to immediately rush on to the appearances and get the full emptiness and dependent arising. No. Stay and take the message of the mere absence. Don't be worried about the mere absence. Of course, with the undeniable appearances, if you're going to get the sense of illusion, the appearance of inherent existence that goes along with that has to be opposed. But then within that, there's something that's unopposed. Of the conventions of persons. And I was so happy that I almost didn't live long enough to be in this phase of, I came out of dying in 1991. The doctors were sure I was going to die. In the room in the new hospital, it was a triage room. Triage, I looked it up yesterday, from the French, that means sorting out. On the battlefield, Napoleon's battlefield, of these soldiers need to go there, and these need to be treated there, these need to be treated there. I was in a new building. I was sent from one hospital to another and ended up probably in an ICU room. It was a new ICU room. And I was the only person in the room. It was a big, big room. And had two nurses. And I was there to die. And going through a stage of just pure golden light. And came to at one point. Anyway, I've told that story before. And so it was so nice that I had this chance to go through another phase of translation, in which these undeniable appearances of the conventions of persons, that's what those are posited as, that didn't get in the earlier translation, whenever I did this, are posited as accumulators of actions, lay, karma. But those are actions. The meaning of that karma. Karma sometimes means actions, and sometimes means the predispositions that are deposited in the mind or in the person. In the consequentialist system, sometimes it says in the mind, sometimes that the person is the basis of infusion of the predispositions. It's an interesting tenet. And so these undeniable appearances of the conventions of persons, those, the literal translation is very juicy, are posited as accumulations as the accumulators of actions, and as the experiencers of effects. in my crib, I somehow pushed myself up and motioned to my parents and asked and got out of them what my name was. I was the experiencer of effects. And, well, okay, I told you the story of lying in my crib and coming to on the plane of, I was on the plane of razors. I was walking quickly on the plane of knives. The ground was knives. And I came to in my crib. I was walking on these and then came to in my crib. It's not like my first memory in the crib, but I was again in the crib. Okay? Experiencer of effects. That's what that means. Conventions of persons dawn as objects of your awareness. Conventions of persons, undeniable appearances of conventions of persons are posited as experiencers of effects. All right. And then the third one, find ascertainment with respect to how dependent arisings are feasible within the absence of inherent existence. So first, through this, using Chandrakirti's sevenfold reasoning on the appearance of I as it appeared in some, tense situation, right? To use that, a person, that one does not in the least have an inherent existence. Okay. Frequently trained this way in the class of emptiness. Then